and welcome to Bridges to Community. My name is Erica Lab. I'm Executive Director of Bridges by EPOCH in Westford, and we're actually shooting on location today. So welcome to Bridges by EPOCH in Westford.
And I'm Sarah Turcott. I'm the Community Relations Director here at Bridges by EPOCH. And today I have a great pleasure to introduce to you all Beth Salzberg. She is a Director for Jewish Family Children Services. And actually, before we get started, Beth, I would love for you to tell everybody a little bit about Jewish Family and Children's Services.
Sure. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Sarah
welcome.
and Erica.
Yeah,
for
thank you
having
for
me
being here.
It's great to be here today. So I work at Jewish Family and Children's Service in Waltham, which is a lifespan social impact organization. It's actually just over 150 years old.
Wow.
Oh my goodness,
And
I
it
didn't
serves,
realize that.
it serves individuals and families who are coping with all kinds of life cycle challenges, everything from families with new babies. So we have an adoption program. We have many programs for adults living with intellectual or developmental disabilities, right on up through the life cycle, many services for older adults and their family members. And I direct the Alzheimer's and Related Disorders Family Support Program.
Great,
It's a
great.
very special organization.
Awesome. And I noticed your button, Dementia Friend, so we're going to hear all about that today, I hope. Speaking of dementia, if you would, for our viewers, can you talk a little bit about what dementia is? I know we hear a lot about it, and Sarah and I work with it every day, but for our viewers, could you sort of give us an understanding of what dementia is?
Sure. So the term dementia does not describe a specific disease. It actually means a group of symptoms, and that can include changes in memory. Most people are familiar with losing memories of things that happened recently. So that's probably the most common symptom, but there are many others. It can include changes in the ability to make plans, to reason. It can include changes in personality, emotion, ability to perceive, sensory input, things like that. And there are many different brain diseases that can cause this group of symptoms that we call dementia. The most common medical condition is Alzheimer's disease. That accounts for about 60 to 80% of cases, but there are many other conditions. In fact, there's, depending how you count it, 100 other medical conditions that can cause dementia.
Dementia. So we always talk about dementia as this umbrella term for all these memory-related disorders and diseases.
Yeah.
It can be helpful.
Yeah. How common would you say dementia is in general?
The most recent estimates put it at about 1 out of every 10 people age 65 or older has a diagnosable dementia. That doesn't mean they necessarily have been diagnosed. And then nationwide, about 200,000 people are estimated living with dementia who are younger than 65. So dementia can begin much younger. It can begin in someone's 30s, 40s, 50s. It's not nearly as common, but it does happen.
Right. And for the purposes of today, we're really talking about dementias that aren't reversible. So there are other reasons people lose memory, but that may be reversible. But for today, we're talking more of those long-term diseases or illnesses that the dementia is ongoing for them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point you're raising, Erica, because sometimes a person may be experiencing some changes in their thinking, and they may say to themselves, well, why should I say anything to my doctor? There's no cure right now. And it can be very scary to be having these symptoms. But one of the reasons it's really important to talk to your doctor and look into it is it could be something curable that's kind of imitating these symptoms. It could be something like medications you're taking that are interacting, or a thyroid imbalance, a B12 deficiency, dehydration. It could be depression, stress, poor sleep. So that would be the first step, would be to rule out those treatable kinds of situations.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. And so tell us about Dementia Friendly Massachusetts. Is that a good next question?
Yeah, or just, we're talking about being dementia friendly. So I think a good way to get started with would be to explain what is a dementia-friendly community? Because I think we've been hearing a lot more about it. So to explain to everyone just kind of the basics on what a dementia-friendly community is.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to be here in Westford, where the community has come together and is working to become a dementia-friendly community. So what does that mean? So it used to be that really the only people who were talking about dementia and focusing on it were healthcare professionals, social service providers, and then of course the people who are living with dementia and their circle of family members and caregivers. And it was really kind of an area of silence outside of that group. So what the dementia-friendly community movement is trying to do is really open up this conversation much more broadly, and to help, for example, businesses understand these are your customers, not only people with the disease, but also family members, to help faith communities understand that these are folks who need to continue as members of your congregation, and they can continue with a little support, to help school children be able to learn things, and that may help them cope with situations unfolding in their own family, as a lot of grandparents, in some cases even parents, may be developing symptoms. And the list goes on. First responders, healthcare providers themselves.
We get wider and wider. The web gets wider and
It gets wider and wider, and it's amazing to see what different communities are doing. If I can just give you one example, so Topsfield, home of the Topsfield Fair, this fall became the first agricultural fair in the country to become dementia friendly, and they created a special map for families coping with dementia, but it could also be useful for people with other cognitive conditions that would make a fairground really overwhelming. And they worked with some of the food vendors to have a simplified menu, just simple things like that.
Amazing.
But that's an example of the kind of creative thinking that we see communities start to do, and it really makes their community work better for everybody.
Was there a sense of the response? Did you get a sense of how that went over with the families that were able to attend because of that? Did they?
Yeah, it's a great question. I haven't actually heard that kind of report specifically, but I would imagine that it meant the world to people. And I will tell you, so I run a memory cafe, and I think we'll talk about that, but that's another example of a kind of program that really opens up a public space for people who have become isolated. And I think when people coping with something very difficult like dementia have the opportunity to feel welcomed again, and to have some accommodations made so that it really works for them, it means the world to people, because we not only need to have our basic needs met, we need a place to connect with others and have fun.
Have that sense of community.
That sense of being part of the community.
That's what we talk often with families about, how dementia can you get more and more isolated. And as we age in our culture, sadly, we get more and more isolated. And then you add hearing loss or dementia and all these other things on top of it, and your world gets smaller and smaller. And so part of the reason we do this show even is just to bridge that, if I might be so bold, but to expand, to get that community back, because we know that joy comes from community. Even people that are really shy,
sense of purpose.
You want to be part of something bigger than yourself. And so it's great to see something like the Topsfield Fair, for people there to see it in a new way, and then maybe even go back to their own communities and start something.
And I think it's amazing, to add to what Erica's saying, is that everybody in the community can be involved in it, and it doesn't take that much to simplify things. And I would love to break into, who in the community can be involved in this initiative, or what sectors, so to say, of the community are already involved, and can you touch a little bit on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's no limit really to what sectors can be involved. I think in most municipalities in Massachusetts that are working on a dementia-friendly initiative, I would say most typically you have some members of the town government. A lot of libraries are involved, a lot of first responders, a lot of people who work in residential settings like yourselves, a lot of councils on aging are right out front
Right.
in many municipalities, and many business folks, which is really wonderful. But, you know, from there, I would say everything under the sun. And I'm really excited that there are more youth getting involved. We were talking a little bit about what's happening here in Westford.
Yeah, Neshoba Valley Tech.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And I was at a conference not too long ago, and there was a high school student speaking and talking about his work. This was in Minnesota. And he said, you know, people think that young people don't care about aging and dementia. We do. All you have to do is explain to us how it affects us.
Right.
And he said, you know, dementia, if we don't get a handle on this in the United States, this is going to bankrupt our healthcare system.
Right.
And he said, that's my healthcare.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said, we can be real social entrepreneurs. You know, my generation knows how to do social media. We know how to think differently. Just tell us why it's important to us and give us the freedom to create. And I thought that was a really inspiring message. And it reminded me, we can't assume that young people wouldn't be interested. They
Right.
just have to receive the information.
Exactly. And actually, some of our friends from Neshoba Valley Tech will be here for our Dementia Friends training tonight.
Terrific.
And before we jump into that, I do have a question here. If businesses and other organizations want to get training or education, what is the best way to go about this and tap into these trainings?
Absolutely. So just as there are communities like Westford that have a municipal dementia-friendly effort going, there's a statewide structure which is helping to provide technical assistance and take what is learned in one place and spread it around. And that's called Dementia Friendly Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that is based at the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. And Patty Sullivan is the project manager. So perhaps her email could be provided through.
Yes, we
through
will
the
get you that
show.
email, folks.
Yeah.
Right here at the bottom.
But, you know, I'm one of the circle of people who meet every month and sort of talk about the strategy. And you can contact any one of us. You can contact the Alzheimer's Association chapter of Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Great.
There are several organizations that are all working together, Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and also we work very closely like this with the age-friendly movement. Massachusetts is officially now the second age-friendly state in the country. New York beat us out just by a tiny bit, but that's okay.
Rivalry will never go away.
Right. It's okay.
Even in dementia.
Yeah.
Aging.
So there's a lot of great work that's being done, and we really try to bring together dementia-friendly and age-friendly efforts and
great.
help communities sort of figure out what fits for them.
Yeah, it's interesting too when you think of businesses getting the training. Even a business that you think of not as a first responder or, you know, someone that's catering to people that are older or might be dealing with those diseases, they're the children of or the spouses of, or so even just sort of, you know, I think of a local business, a tech company recently came to us and they wanted their staff to come and do some volunteering and be around it. And, you know, so many of those people are touched personally by dementia. And so it's a way to get to those people that maybe aren't seeking out help by just inviting them into your organization to do this training. They might go, oh, gosh, you know, I think of my aunt or my grandmother and boy, maybe I could be helping her in a different way.
Yeah.
Or communicating differently, or you know, when you're out and about and you see people in the community that you tune in a little bit differently because now you can see it through this lens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think families have been carrying this alone, and they've been carrying it in silence. And many people have grown up thinking this is just part of aging,
Right.
that it's
Right.
inevitable and there's nothing anyone can do. And I think we're at a moment now where there are more resources. There's the silence is being broken. There are a number of well-known individuals who've had the courage to announce that they have a diagnosis of dementia. Sandra Day O'Connor comes to mind, who just recently said that she has dementia, most likely due to Alzheimer's. here in Massachusetts, as part of the Dementia Friends Public Awareness Program, we have quotes in our material, and the first quote is from Dr. Charles Ogletree, who is a Harvard Law professor and civil rights leader who announced a few years ago that he's living with Alzheimer's. So I think those are some of the actions that are making a difference, and then what you're doing and all these various efforts around the state are helping families see that they don't have to carry this all by themselves.
Exactly. Build a good support group network.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you have these trainings.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain to us what the trainings are and who might be interested in coming and what
Sure.
happens during these trainings?
And maybe what do they learn? What do they benefit
Yeah.
by going to those trainings?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start by just telling you a little bit about where the Dementia Friends program came from. So again, it was part of this broader dementia-friendly community movement. And what happened was that it became obvious immediately that there needed to be some common language and some basic education, because it might be that a few people in a community really knew a lot about dementia and wanted to do something. But again, there was so much silence around the issue that there needed to be a way to get more people to sort of understand the basics and get interested.
Yeah.
So actually, this program has its roots in Japan, which happens to have the oldest population in the world.
Yes, yes.
So demographically, they're 15 years or so ahead of where we're going to be in the United States. And Japan really saw the need to raise the basic level of kind of dementia literacy among its population. So they started a public awareness program, and then the Alzheimer's Society in the UK picked up on that and created the Dementia Friends program and began to license it to other countries. So that's where it came from. So the United States is one of 34 countries doing this, and it's really amazing to see photos of people around the world with their version of the Dementia Friends. The same colors, the logos are different. Obviously, the language is different. So here in the United States, Dementia Friends has been going for a couple of years, and in Massachusetts for 1 year. So Jewish Family and Children's Service is leading it for Massachusetts. And what I do is go around and I train volunteers all over the place to lead these hour-long public awareness sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked, what do they teach? So they really don't focus on the medical side of things. They provide a little bit of that context, but mainly they focus on practical information that will help people communicate with someone living with dementia and will help them stay connected with their neighbors, with their family members who are living with dementia. So it's really about becoming a friend in that way. And there's really a lot of information that you just see the light bulbs go on over people's heads because they've never had the chance to discuss this.
And it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we keep it short, we keep it focused on those practical skills. It's interactive. We have a video of individuals living with dementia sharing their experience. One of the folks in the video says at the end, I've been living with this diagnosis for 14 years. People are always blown away. They say, I didn't know.
Right.
And the reality is people can live for even decades with an S with cognitive changes. And we want those years to be full of life and fulfillment and meaning.
Not focusing on what's lost.
Yeah, exactly.
What's still there.
Yeah.
What's the reaction at the end of some of your trainings? There must be, kind of a variety of people that come to them.
Yeah.
What are some of the feelings at the end of after taking the training? Like, the feedback that you get from participants?
Well, we do have people fill out an evaluation, so I get a chance to read comments as well as to hear from people who come up to me at the end. And it's interesting because whether it's a group of professionals who kind of work in this field or community members, it hits home personally for lots of people in the room. So I hear lots of comments about, I wish I had known this 5 years ago, or this is going to help me now with someone important in my life.
Right.
I've got to tell my sister about this so we
Yeah.
can be there for dad more effectively, you know, things like that. I think people immediately apply it to the relationships they have with people living with dementia. And then there are people who think about ways they can apply it in their work as community members.
And anyone can come.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so we have a website, dementiafriendsma.org, and there's always a list of sessions scheduled there that are being offered by trained volunteers all over the state. So anyone can visit the website and just look for a session at any point.
So
Yeah,
that is
you're all over
wonderful.
the place too. She's in popular demand.
Yeah.
And talking about resources that people can look up, I'd like to segue into talking about memory cafes, because memory cafes in my heart holds a special place, because it really provides people in the community to come out and engage within their community at, you know, places such as the library or coffee shops. I mean, there's almost, you're going to let us know how many memory cafes, but they're all over Massachusetts. And
Sarah has a great one. If you've never been.
we do. We actually have one the fourth Tuesday of every month at the Java Room right down the road in Chelmsford. But it is, you know, memory cafes are so important because people can come out. You know, we were talking before about how people isolate, and it's great for people to have these resources to tap into to get back and bring back some normalcy into their life. So can you just explain, because we hear it all the time, what is a memory cafe? How do you find them?
who goes?
And yeah,
Who's
what
supposed
types
to
of
go?
cafes are there?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. So memory cafes are friendly social gatherings, and they're for people living with dementia and their family and friends and caregivers, everybody. And a few important points there. So no one is asked their diagnosis or if they have one. And anyone who can enjoy being in the group is welcome to come. So it's not as if, as someone's dementia progresses, that they can't come anymore. It can be for any underlying condition. It doesn't matter what it is. And one of the people I learned about memory cafes from, who's in Santa Fe, she started the first cafe in the United States, and she said the best memory cafes are the ones where you can't tell who has a diagnosis and who doesn't. And I've heard that a lot. We have the cafe I run in Waltham, we have a partnership with Brandeis University. And so we have college students there every month. And I've heard that from a lot of our students. I can't tell, you know?
Right.
And I say that's good.
Yeah.
That's because we've created an environment where people are at their best and
Exactly.
they can just enjoy and be social, and it's nice.
Right.
It feels good to them to not have to be focusing on what they can't do. So memory cafes are really fun. They're all different. They're all hosted by different organizations. They're in different kinds of settings. The Java Club, you know, they're in restaurants, they're in libraries, they're in senior centers, museums, community centers, lots of different places. I would say the majority of them have some kind of expressive arts component. A lot of them have guest artists come and lead singing or some other kind of creative activity. And that's because those types of things really create a sense of community among the people in the room, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Exactly.
And you can enjoy them and feel challenged and grow from trying something new, no matter whether you have mild dementia, advanced dementia, or you're a care partner who isn't living with dementia. All those folks can enjoy these kinds of creative activities.
So important.
Yeah.
And I love how you say the care partner, because it's just as beneficial. You don't have to be memory impaired to
Absolutely.
enjoy and go to these memory cafes. It's a really great offering.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And just sort of in closing, can you tell us how you got so interested in this? Is there any particular, I don't know, story or reason that you do this work?
I think that, you know, I don't have a real clear answer there. I guess I had worked in hospice before I came to Jewish Family and Children's Service, and I worked with a lot of families that were dealing with dementia. And I think, you know, I had an experience which I've heard similar things from a lot of people who have either been a family caregiver or a professional in this area, which is you start to change your perspective. And one thing I've learned from spending time with people who live with dementia is that the present moment is really valuable. And, sometimes I say to my colleagues, you could pay $1,000 and go on a Zen Buddhist retreat to try to get this awareness. And it actually comes through our work because you kind of have to let go of your plan, your structure. And I'm sure you feel this running a memory cafe as I do. We plan and we have what we think we want to do, and then we kind of let it go and we see what happens, and we focus on the emotions. We focus on the relationship, the connectedness. And we know that what happens in the moment matters. And even if that person isn't going to remember 3 hours later that they were in a specific place and did a specific thing, that feeling stays with them because their emotional life is still intact. So I think I got really kind of hooked on the value of this work, and I felt that this is an area where there's so much potential to make a difference just by sharing a little bit of knowledge and setting up these spaces where people can come together and feel welcome.
True. Well, we thank you for the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
And appreciate you having having you on our show.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you both for
it's a
having me.
pleasure.
It's a pleasure to talk with you both.
Awesome, and we'll
Go
be
Westford.
go Westford, and surrounding towns.
Yeah, and make sure you take time to visit the website dementiafriendlymass.org so that you can find a training near you.
Yes.
Maybe you'll meet Beth in person. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Wow.